All right. Hello again, adventurers, and welcome to another exciting episode of D&D Deep Dive, the show where we dive deep into classes, subclasses, and other features of 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons to help you get the most out of your choices. So, today, we're actually doing something kind of special for me personally, in honor of the release of Fizban's something. It's something to do with dragons. I'll tell you in a second here. Fizban's Treasury of Dragons, now that I remember what it's called. In honor of Fizban's Treasury of Dragons, I have released a brand new subclass for my custom class called the Dragon Knight. The Dragon Knight is a class that I designed and published officially through the DM's Guild like 3 or 4 years ago now. Literally a month after the DM's Guild launched, I had this up there. The Dragon Knight itself is a platinum bestseller and has been a platinum bestseller since shortly before that was a thing. A little while after I released the Dragon Knight, I released a supplement called the Warlord, which was an additional calling. And now I've added one more calling to that. So that whole product is now called Additional Callings. And there's a link in the description for you to actually go over and download this, the Additional Callings, which will have my new calling in it. And there will be a link to the actual base class, the Dragon Knight. Both of these things are pay what you want. So if you don't have the money right now, you can download it for free. If you do have the money, but you don't think it's worth anything, you can also download it for free. It is literally pay what you want. However, if you do decide that this has some value to you and you want to be able to compensate me for my time, you are more than welcome to actually pay whatever you want for it. So yeah. Now, to kind of... you're going to get us in the mood for talking about my class. I designed the Dragon Knight long before I started doing D&D, did a deep dive. And I have learned a crap ton about class design and things like that. And the nice thing about the DM's Guild is it allows me to update the files whenever I want. The original Dragon Knight has been updated. I think it's 1.6 is the current version. Right now, 1.6 seems to be the final version, unless something happens where I think another change needs to happen. But 1.6 is the final version of that. The additional callings, which used to be just the Warlord, this is technically the second version of that file. And I've actually I sent it out to a couple of my really good D&D friends to give me some feedback. I've gotten a little bit of feedback back on it already. I'm hoping to get a little bit more. So it may change eventually. But what I have right now I think is really solid. I'm really proud of it. It does exactly what I like in a subclass, in the idea that it lets you play the base class very differently, but it still kind of fits with the base class really well. I do have D&D deep dives for all of the other subclasses and the base class here on the channel. They should be in the D&D deep dive playlist if you want to check those out. But I think it's time for us to delve into the Ravager. So, quick reminder and refresher about... first things first, if you enjoy this stuff, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon, and turn notifications on. All of those things are sincerely, really important for stuff like this to get out there. So, that being said, quick refresher on 5th edition class design. Every class in 5th edition is designed to play very differently right from the beginning. In order to do that, classes have these things that we call defining features. A defining feature is something that's either unique to the class, or maybe it's not unique, but it shows up earlier in this class, so the class can use it in a different way than any other classes. And in order for something to be a defining feature, it has to show up within the first 2 levels. So, for the Dragon Knight, what are the defining features? Well, I'm glad you asked me. For the Dragon Knight, the first defining feature of the Dragon Knight is called Servant of the Dragon. Effectively, when you become Dragon Pact is what it's called. I'm getting ahead of myself. So when you become a Dragon Knight ready for first level, you actually pledge yourself to a Dragon Master, and they actually impart some of their power on you so that you can enact their will, and they can kind of sit on their hoard and, you know, do dragon things. So what happens is at first level, you actually pick a dragon. And in the base class, I actually have chromatic dragons, metallic dragons, and I actually have had, since the beginning, crystal dragons. So crystal dragons will be something new that's being added to 5th edition in Fizban's Treasury of Dragons. I already had him here. But basically what happens is your choice of your Dragon Master will change some aesthetic things, and it also will change some things. Eventually you develop some resistance and eventually immunity to a certain damage type that's based on your Dragon Master, and as a bonus action, you can actually infuse your weapon with the power of your Dragon Master, basically just changing the damage type from whatever it normally would do to the damage type associated with your Dragon Master. So to give you an example, a black dragon does acid damage, whereas a gold dragon would do fire damage, or a sapphire dragon would do thunder damage. So it's a relatively useful thing to be able to change your damage type, especially from level 1. The second defining feature that you get at level 1 is called Servant of the Dragon, and it basically is much more a roleplay focused thing. Basically, it allows you to contact your Dragon Master, or more importantly, for your Dragon Master to contact you to tell you what you should be doing. And without going too much into it, it does have some limitations on your use of it, simply to prevent players from going, oh, I don't know what this is. I'll just ask my Dragon Master, and then I know everything, because dragons live for thousands of years. And it also has means where if you are a good aligned person that is serving a chromatic dragon, which are all evil aligned, if you want to kind of, you know, ignore your Dragon Master or something, there are some really, really bad disadvantages to attempting to ignore your Dragon Master when they come a-calling. So, and finally, the last defining feature for first level is you actually pick your subclass at first level. And the reason for that is every subclass has a different dragon weapon that they use. This is, you take certain weapons and you concentrate on them for an hour. You can do it during a short or long rest, and it changes it into a dragon weapon, which has different properties and acts differently than any other weapon in the game. So right from level 1, you have a different way that you're going to attack. All of the dragon weapons have something about them right at level 1 that lets you attack a little bit differently or just use it differently. And then as you grow in power, you get more abilities that specifically require the use of your dragon weapon. You can turn magic weapons into your dragon weapon. There's some limitations. Read the base class if you want to know all of that. But the real kind of thing that's going to make the Dragon Knight feel different right from level 1 is the dragon weapon that you get to use. And they are very, very different. One of them is the paired shields, which is literally a pair of shields that you beat people with. Another one's the winged spear, which is a spear that comes back to your hand, so you can throw it over and over again. We'll talk about the Ravagers in a second, but they get what's called the Dragon's Claws, which are super cool. I designed them myself based on a weapon for Phantasy Star Online. Yeah, so that's Draconic Calling. And then finally, at second level, you get your final defining feature, which is Draconic Power. Draconic Power is their limited resource. They get these things called Draconic Power Points. They start with 2, eventually they get up to 6, and they recharge on a short rest. So this is a class that finds short rests of a very important. And you use Draconic Power Points to do these things called Dragon Attacks. Dragon attacks are basically things that you could replace one of your attacks that is part of your attack action with a dragon attack, and it lets you do something different. It will add on additional damage and generally will let you do something associated with your Draconic Calling. All of the dragon attacks that you get are found in your Draconic Calling except for 2. The first one that you get right at level 2 is Dragon Transformation, which you don't turn into a dragon. What you do is if you've ever played the game Legend of Dragoon, you go into Dragoon form, basically. Your armor gets cooler, you grow a pair of dragon wings, and you do additional damage on your attack, along with a few other kind of things like that. So you turn into this kind of half-dragon hybrid. And then the other dragon attack that you get as part of the main class is Dragon Breath, which is a 20th level ability, which gives you a lesser version of your Dragon Master's Dragon Breath attack. Because that's how dragons work. So that's the basics of the Dragon Knight. Now, going to... Where did my mouse go? There it is. Going to the Ravager. The Ravager is kind of a hybrid as far as what it's designed to be. The Ravager is designed specifically to imitate kind of the physical attacking power of the dragon. Their dragon weapon is called the Dragon Claws, which is a pair of claws. And what they specifically are is they're actually 3 blades that each blade is attached to a cord that is attached to a bar with a tension spring. So what happens, and then there's a casing around it so that they look kind of like stylized dragon claws that you hold on your arms. And what you do is as you swing them, if you know how to use them, they will actually extend and fly out and slash, and because of the tension spring, they will retract back. And that's how you use them. They kind of swing out and come back, and so they're a reach weapon. And most of the abilities of the Ravager are built around the idea of hypermobility. But this hypermobility is specifically linked around using your enemies to give you more mobility, because you will fire them forward, the claws will get stuck in your enemy, and then you will drag yourself to the enemy. So that's kind of where the Ravager is built around. All of its abilities are going to be built around just giving you more mobility based on where your enemies are. So that's what it is. Let's actually dive into the class itself. So, at first level, we get the Dragon Weapon. When you choose this calling, your Dragon Master gives you the ability to use your Draconic power to infuse a pair of battle axes, flails, or one of each into your Dragon Weapon, the Dragon Claws. You are proficient with them, and they have the following properties. Damage die is a D6, and the damage type is slashing. They are melee weapons that have the reach and light properties. And as paired weapons, attacking while only wielding one causes that attack to have disadvantage. And you can draw both claws when you would normally only be able to draw one. And then more stuff to transform. You have to spend an hour concentrating with them. If you transform a magic weapon, it keeps any magical properties it has. So like if you had a flame tongue axe, which doesn't exist, but let's pretend it does. If you had a flame tongue axe that you changed into your dragon weapon, well, the damage die would change to a D6 because it doesn't keep its damage die. However, the additional damage you do when it's flaming is a magical property that would stay. So you can still use magic weapons, you just have to transform them into your dragon weapon before you can use them. And since most weapons are going to require attunement anyway, you can do that this is the same time. It's not a big deal. Second of all, you can only have one pair of Dragon's Claws at any given time. So if you transform another weapon into your Dragon Claws, the previous ones turn back to what they were before. And that's how all the Dragon weapons work. It's just a way so that because the Dragon Knight is a weapon-based class, making it so that they couldn't use magic weapons would severely cripple the class. So this is just a way that you can do that, and you still get to use this really cool, really interesting weapon that doesn't exist in D&D currently. Like I said, I actually based it on a weapon from Fantasy Star Online called the Wired Lance, which basically kind of does the same thing. It's this thing you swing them and they go out far. It's a cool idea, and I like ranged ideas. I liked ranged weapons and things like that, so yeah. So, that's Dragon Weapon. At 3rd level, you get Vicious Mobility. Your fighting style involves mastering the speed of your Dragon Master while imitating the deadliness of their claws. If you hit a creature or object with an attack with one of the claws that is not adjacent to you, directly after the damage is rolled, your claws drag you to the closest space adjacent to the target. This drag does not cost movement, nor does it provoke opportunity attacks. While wielding the Dragon Claws, you can use the Dragon Vault Dragon Attack. We will get to the Dragon Attack in just a second here. The first half of this is basically changing how you use the Dragon Claws. From first level, you're using them very similar to how you would use a whip, except for the fact that you're dual wielding it. And the whip you normally can't dual wield. It doesn't have the light property. So you're basically kind of dual wielding this reach weapon, and that's what you do for the first 2 levels. Once you get to the 3rd level, you get a little more variety. If you are right next to a target, you can just attack. And because it is a melee weapon with reach, you don't have to worry about getting any disadvantage on attacks when someone's in a melee with you, and you can just attack normal. However, a reach weapon can hit a target up to 10 feet away instead of just 5 feet. So if there's a target that is 10 feet away instead of 5 feet, when you attack it, you will be dragged over to it, which, if you are being crafty, can be incredibly useful. Forced movement has a lot of useful things. First of all, depending on where your enemy is at that particular moment in time, you can use it to get out of a situation you don't want to be. Maybe you're surrounded by enemies, but there's another one over here, so you can just Dragon Claw, get dragged over to them, and then kind of rotate around the enemy and not have to worry about getting all these opportunity attacks or anything like that. The other thing that's really useful is forced movement breaks grapples. So as long as there is a creature within at least 10 feet away from you, you can get grappled, attack a different creature, drag yourself away, and you are no longer grappled. And you haven't spent any movement to break the grapple. You didn't have to use your action to break the grapple. You can all do that with your Vicious Mobility and your Dragon Claws. So the fighting style of this class is going to be based around, okay, where do I want to go and how do I want to get there? Because they are light weapons, that does mean you can use 2-weapon fighting right from level 1. So you get to 2-weapon fight and have fun with that. I have to remember for the base Dragon Glass. I thought at one point I have fighting styles, and I think I got rid of them. So the only kind of detriment to the class is when you're 2-weapon fighting with them, your offhand at the attack won't add your ability modifier to the damage, unless they do have a feat that came out in Tasha's that lets you choose a fighting style. So if you do want that to kind of improve your damage output, you can always get that off of a feat and get that of a fighting style without having a multi-class or anything like that. So, yeah. So the other half of this is called Dragon Vault, which is the name of the dragon attack. So, for Dragon Vault, As part of your attack action, you can use one Draconic Power Point to replace one of your attacks with this dragon attack. Your dragon claws lash out, embedding themselves in your target. Roll a melee attack roll against a target in range of your dragon claws. On a hit, apply damage as normal, and after your claws drag you adjacent to the target, you vault over them, landing on the opposite side or corner of the target space and dealing an additional dragon die of damage to the target. This attack can benefit from the additional damage from your Dragon Transformation or your Dragon Strike class features. So, one thing I did forget to mention, a lot of dragon attacks will add additional damage that is based on what's called the Dragon Die. The Dragon Die is just a die. It starts out as... it helps if I'm on the right class. It starts out as a D4, and then as you get more powerful, it eventually gets to a D10 by the time you're 17th level. So it's just a way to kind of make sure that your damage output is always kind of keeping pace with the enemies that you're attacking and things like that. So this particular ability... yes, the additional damage is nice, and because this is based on an attack roll, that means not only can it crit, but the additional damage, because it's die-based and not like Rage did a damage where it's just a flat number, you would roll it double the number of dice. So critting on a dragon attack is really useful. Now, Dragon Transformation I already talked about. When you're transformed into your kind of, half-dragon state, you can do an additional... dragon die of damage on all your attacks. Most dragon attacks, that doesn't happen. They're powerful enough already. The Dragon Vault specifically says that if you are in your dragon transformation state, you still get to add that on top of the other damage on that. And then at level, I think 11, let's see. At level 11, for the Dragon Knight, you get an ability called Dragon Strike, which is basically anytime you are changing the damage type of your weapon, like I mentioned you can do, you just add an additional dragon die of damage. So it's very similar to the Paladin's improved smite ability. So yes, all of that stuff would be in addition to the additional damage that Dragon Vault gets. It's unique to not this specific dragon attack, but most dragon attacks don't allow that, so that it is mentioned in here. And again, with Dragon Vault, it again is built around the idea of mobility. You get to go to the other side of your enemy. So with a medium enemy, that means when you use Dragon Vault, bare minimum, if you use Dragon Vault on someone that is right next to you, you will move 10 feet because you go over their 5-foot square and you go to the other side. If you attack a large enemy, you're going to move a minimum of 15 feet if you are right next to them, because you go over the 2 squares that they take up and you land in the third. The larger the enemy, the larger your movement. And I specifically didn't give a size limitation to this to make sure that it is always useful. And again, that is if you only do it to a target next to you. If you use the reach feature, that would combine with Dragon Vault, and you would move next to them and then vault over them. So theoretically, with a medium-sized creature, you can move up to 15 feet with a single Dragon Vault. Now, at third level, you only have 2 Draconic Power Points. So if you used a Dragon Transformation and then used Dragon Vault, you are done with your Draconic Power Points until you get a short rest. So you do have to be very careful about, okay, do I want to Dragon Transformation, which gives me a fly speed, which, gives me extra damage? Do I want to have Dragon Vault so I can get out of sticky situations or maybe put myself in sticky situations? A lot of these things are going to be choosing how you want to burn your Draconic Power Points and what's going to give you the best benefit. Again, the idea here being what is going to be most useful for you in a certain situation. There's never going to be a always right answer. It's going to be based on, well, what's the rest of your team do. You know, being able to get to the other side of a large enemy can mean the difference of being in the middle of a fireball and being on the outside of the fireball. And as we look at some of the other abilities that you can get here, there are other things you can do depending on where you are located. So, yeah. So that's level 3. At 6th level, you get Dragon Claw Mastery. You have mastered the ability to embed your claws in your enemies. You can now use an action to make a special dual attack against 2 different creatures that are both currently in your dragon claws range. If both attacks hit, you drag both creatures together, creating a line between the 2 creatures and dragging them to the 2 spaces closest to the midpoint of that line, then dragging yourself to the closest space adjacent to them, doing the normal damage you would do if you had hit them with a melee weapon attack. If only one attack hits, you do normal damage, but you're unable to drag yourself to a space adjacent to the target. You can treat this special dual attack as if you took the attack action in relation to using 2-weapon fighting, and the attacks can benefit from your Dragon Strike class feature or your Dragon Transformation additional damage. You can also use the Savagery Aura Dragon Attack. We'll get to the Dragon Attack in a second. So this gives you a new action you can use. Basically, you pick 2 enemies that are within range. And again, within range for a reach weapon is anything within a 10-foot radius of you. So theoretically, the enemies can be up to 20 feet away. So what happens is you hit these 2 enemies. As long as you hit both of them, you will actually just draw a line between the 2 of them on the map and bring them together the shortest possible distance there is. So if they're both like one here and one here, they'll go boom, and you'll go right to them. If they're both on opposite sides of you, they'll go boom, and you will land adjacent to them without having really moved much at all. But it allows you to kind of redirect enemies to prepare maybe for other attacks, to help your allies. But it's also moving you, which is kind of the basis of the idea of the Ravager. So again, depending on which enemies you pick, where they are, and where you are when you start the attack, you're going to have a lot of choices as far as where you are going to end your movement, while they are going to end that movement. And the reason I specifically mention you can treat it as the attack action in relation to 2-weapon fighting is because that means you can use your action to make that attack, but then you can also still make your bonus action offhand attack. So you're not getting rid of, by 6th level, you do get extra attacks. So by 6th level, you get 3 attacks per turn since you're dual wielding. You get 2 from the attack action and then a 3rd one from your 2-weapon fighting. So I didn't want this to be something where you have to choose between making 2 attacks or 3 attacks. You can still make the 3 attacks, but to put some limitations on this, both attacks have to hit for you to get any of the movement built into the class. If you only hit 1, you're basically just attacking them. You don't get to move at all. So yeah, and again, the whole point behind this ability is being able to reposition the enemies and yourself in one step, and then being able to use your attack afterwards means you theoretically can bring them together, drag yourself there, attack another enemy, get out of there so that your enemy can throw a shatter on them, or maybe throw a fairy fire on them or something, and you're nowhere near it because you've used your bonus action to, find another target and go. One thing I forgot to mention about Vicious Mobility, the thing that lets you travel, is it does specifically say if you hit a creature or object. So this is not limited specifically to creatures. There are certain enemies that are designated as objects, which create issues as far as things requiring a creature. And theoretically, if there is, you know, a wall or something that is within your reach, you can attack the wall. And as long as you hit it, walls actually do have ACs and hit points and things like that. So it is actually possible to attack a wall. And it'll be up to your DM to decide whether or not something is going to hit, or the things like that, or if something is attackable by your claws. Like if you have adamantine walls, perhaps you won't be able to drag yourself to it. Or if there's like a wagon nearby, you can attack the wagon and go to the wagon. So you don't technically have to have an enemy in order to use that mobility aspect, but you do have to have something to attack. You can't just attack nothingness in the ether. You have to be able to latch onto something to use it. So the dragon attack, Savagery Aura. When you take the attack action, you can use one draconic power point to replace one of your attacks with this dragon attack. Till the end of your turn, any creature within 10 feet of you must make a dexterity saving throw as you start swinging your dragon claws around you in an aura of savagery. A creature can only be made to make a saving throw by this dragon attack once per turn. On a failure, they will take 2 dragon dice of damage at the start of each of their turns. At the end of each of their turns, they can make another dexterity saving throw, ending the effect on a success. So, Savagery Aura literally gives you effectively a 10-foot aura that any creature inside it, and this one specifically says creature, has to make a dex save. And if they fail that dex save, that means they basically take bleed damage. Now, the interesting thing about this is the aura lasts until the end of your turn. So if at the beginning of your turn you take the attack action and use one of your attacks to activate Savagery Aura, you can literally run around the battlefield getting people with this aura and forcing them to make a dexterity saving throw. Then because you have another attack and a bonus action 2-weapon fighting attack, you can use that to help get yourself to more enemies to be able to get the most number of people basically infected with this bleed as possible. If you combine it with Dragon Vaults, you can use the additional distance you get from Dragon Vault to get you to other places to ensure you're getting as many enemies as physically possible to get this. So yeah, it's just additional damage, but that additional damage put in the right place can be really, really useful. Now, at 6th level, when you get it, you're only looking at a 2d6 of additional damage, but 2d6 every turn is a big deal. So being able to inflict this early on means you're going to be doing a lot of damage to a lot of different creatures along the all of combat. So very useful there. For those of you wondering, in the base class, it does describe what the DC is for any of your dragon attacks. And it's 8 proficiency bonus plus either strength or dexterity, depending on the subclass that you want to choose. And because the dragon claws don't have the finesse property, this subclass is designed to be a strength-based class. So it more likely than not would be your strength being the thing that decides how bad they're going to get this and how high the DC is going to be. Which is always nice. So yeah. At 11th level, no. Hold please, I have to remember when the next one. It's 10th. Should probably put that in the thing. It's in the base class, but it's always better to have it in here too. So 10th level. Let's try it some more time. At 10th level, you get improved speed. Your dragon claws have become an extension of your body. affecting how you interact with the world. You become trained in the acrobatic skill and can use strength instead of dexterity when utilizing it. If you are already trained, you can now add double your proficiency bonus to strength acrobatics checks. You can also use your Dragon Claws to increase your speed. When you take the dash action, you can use your Dragon Claws to increase your speed by 20 feet for that turn, throwing them forward into the ground and pulling yourself to boost your speed. So the 10th level of abilities for the Dragon Knight are all meant to be out of combat abilities. Do they have uses in combat? Obviously. Any out of combat abilities you generally can find a way to use in combat if you are clever enough. But this specifically is designed to be an out of combat thing. And again, it builds on that idea of hyper mobility. If you are chasing someone, which I don't think happens anywhere near enough in D&D, is having chase scenes, especially if you're fighting a big baddie that realizes they're in a bad place. Having them flee can turn into a really, really fun situation where they can like knock over things as they're running, and the party has to try and catch them before they're able to get away. In situations like that, this can be really useful. Or any time you just need to be fast. The nice thing about it is basically it says when you take the dash action, you increase your speed by 20 feet. What that means is dash, you get to basically take another movement. However, by increasing your speed by 20 feet, that means your base movement is also increased by 20 feet. So if you normally have a 30-foot movement, using improved speed, when you take the dash action, normally you'd be able to travel 60 feet. Because it increases your movement for the turn, that actually increases the 30 feet to 50 feet, meaning for that turn, you can move 100 feet. So again, it builds on that hypermobility, but it does limit it to the idea that you have to take the dash action. And if you take the dash action, that means you're giving up 2 attacks. If you're doing it in combat, you're giving up 2 attacks, first of all. And second of all, you give up your 3rd attack because in order to use 2-weapon fighting, you have to take the attack action to be able to use 2-weapon fighting. Yeah. The other thing, this is something that's not done a ton in 5th edition, but it's actually part of the base rules. Just because like acrobatics is normally aligned with dexterity doesn't mean you always have to make a dexterity check using acrobatics. It's actually in the base rules. You can make a strength acrobatics check or a charisma acrobatics check. There just has to be a reason behind it. So for this basically allows you to replace your dexterity acrobatics checks with strength acrobatics checks. And actually kind of goes back to what I talked about in my last video where I went in that little tirade about ninjutsu. And the idea of there's 2 different ways you can be acrobatic. One, you can have very good muscle control and just be able to shift your center of balance so that it stays right within your base. That would be a very dexterous thing to do. Dexterity is all about muscle control. However, you can also just widen your base. And if you widen your base, that means your center of gravity can shift pretty far and you don't have to worry about falling over. And that's kind of how I view this strength acrobatics aspect. Is this whole class is built around them being very, very strong and using their claws to basically just grip onto things and hold onto things and just use their immense strength to be able to do amazing things. And so that's really where you get this. Now, it doesn't mean that you get to make dex saves with it. Those are still dexterity based. So it's not game breaking or anything like that, but it allows you to do different things that don't currently exist in the game. And I like that. I think it's interesting. So at 14th level, you get Maiming Momentum. Your mastery of momentum no longer applies only to your own momentum. When an enemy attacks you with a ranged attack, you can use your reaction to attempt to redirect the attack and yourself back at the attacker. Make a melee weapon attack with one of your Dragon Claws against the attack roll rolled against you. If your attack roll is higher, you can use your Dragon Claws to redirect the attack back at the attacker and drag yourself to a space adjacent to the enemy that made the attack, also causing a dragon die of damage to the attacker. This movement does not provoke opportunity attacks. The additional damage is increased to 2 dragon dice if you are transformed when you take your reaction. So, this specifically, the wording that I used here does not specifically state that the original attack hits the enemy. What it does is you redirect it back and yourself at the enemy. So, like, if someone shot a poisoned arrow at you, you could use Maiming Momentum to catch the arrow and throw yourself at the enemy, but they're not going to be hit by the arrow, they're going to be hit by you, effectively. Now, because this only requires an attack roll, not a projectile, that does mean that this works on magic that has attack rolls. Anything that uses a saving throw, this doesn't work on. But anything that uses an attack roll, you can redirect. And in universe, the way I explain this is you are literally manipulating momentum. Something like a scorching ray still has momentum. It's just magical momentum. But if you get hit by a scorching ray, you're not just sitting there going, "Ooh, it's hot, it's hot." You're getting hit by a magical attack. There's force behind it, in addition to the fact that you're getting hit by magic. Every depiction of magic we've seen still shows that kind of force being applied, even if it's not enough force to do physical damage to you, and all the physical damage you take is from the magical effects. There's still some sort of force, there's some sort of momentum behind it, and your Dragon Claws are unique weapons. Especially by 14th level, you probably have at least one, if not both, as magic weapons. So being able to redirect a magic attack, again, if someone fires a disintegrate at you, you're not going to be able to disintegrate them back, but you will be able to redirect the attack right back and basically move right next to the person that is casting the disintegrate. The other thing that's really nice about that, especially in the instance of something like Scorching Ray, Scorching Ray has multiple projectiles that it fires. You roll each one individually. Well, if on the first one you're able to redirect it, every other ranged attack that they make, which Scorching Ray is a ranged spell attack, is made with disadvantage because now they have an enemy within 5 feet of them. So it can be very, very useful in that instance as well. And I didn't want it to be only a control thing. You should still be doing the damage. So you do get to do a little bit of damage as you do it. It is limited by your reactions. So if you miss, you're not going to be able to get to retry again. And you can only do it once because you only have one reaction. So it is limited in places, but it's still something that's really interesting and can be really fun. Especially when you start dealing with enemies, higher up enemies that use ranged attacks, they will get 3 or 4 attacks in a turn. And by being able to redirect the first attack, you're able to literally prevent them from making their additional ranged attacks. The way that multi-attack works on most stat blocks is it will say, when you do multi-attack, you can make, 3 attacks with the longsword or 3 attacks with a longbow or something like that. It will tell you which attacks you can make. That doesn't mean you can mix and match them. So if they start making their ranged attacks and then suddenly have an enemy within 5 feet of them, they have to make the rest of their ranged attacks. They can't just switch over to melee attacks because they have an enemy there. So again, the best use of this, in addition to being able to just kind of move yourself around and get yourself out of danger, again, movement breaks, grapples, and the things like that. Forced movement in this particular instance breaks grapples, so it can be useful for that. But it also can be useful just to handicap the person that's attacking you. So, yeah, that's the 14th level of ability. Finally, at 18th level, you get... Oh, I have it listed as 18th level ability. I'll have to change that. You get Warpath, is what it's supposed to be called. Your control over your Dragon Claws is so complete, your enemies are now merely stepping stones on the path of their own destruction. You can now use the Warpath to do Dragon Attack. As part of your attack action, you can use one Draconic Power Point to replace one of your attacks with this Dragon Attack. Make a melee weapon attack with one of your Dragon Claws against a creature within 15 feet. On a hit, you do normal damage for a melee weapon attack using your Dragon Claws, plus 1 dragon die of damage, and you drag yourself to the closest space adjacent to the creature you just hit. And, that's what it is. You drag yourself to the closest space adjacent to the creature you just hit, and can immediately make another attack against a different creature within 15 feet of your new position. You can continue making additional attacks against different creatures as long as they have not been hit by an attack during this dragon attack and are in range when you finish being dragged from the attack. Once you miss, you can no longer make additional attacks as part of this dragon attack. I have to reword that because there's some typos in there I just found. But the basics of it are, you choose a target within 15 feet instead of 10, so this actually has a slightly larger range than your normal attack. You do an attack, you get an additional dragon die of damage on the attack, you drag yourself to them, and then you immediately pick another target, do it again. You can literally just drag yourself completely around the battlefield. It does mean that you need to kind of plan your attacks from the beginning, because let's say you have 3 enemies in kind of a V shape. All right, you have one here, and one here. And this first one you attack here, then you attack this one, but this guy over here is now more than 15 feet away from you. You won't be able to get the third attack. However, if you attack this dude first, then go to this dude, then go to this dude, you get all 3 in the attack. So it does require a little bit of planning, a little bit of knowing how the battlefield is set up to get the most bang for your buck. And anytime you miss, that ends your little chain. So looking at the enemies and being able to gauge which ones are going to have higher ACs is going to be important. You may want to put the higher AC ones at the end of the chain, simply so that if you do miss, you're not losing 3 attacks, you're only losing 1 attack. I did get a little bit of feedback on this, where the idea of there not being an upper limit would make this a little bit overpowered. And I did kind of sit down and think about it when I was writing it, and then again when I got that feedback. And from what I see right now, because I haven't had the chance to physically play test this, because I just haven't had the time, I don't really see that as being an issue, because the limitation that the person giving me feedback and I kind of agreed upon, if they were to put a limitation, was between 3 and 4 attacks. In general, you're probably not going to get much more than 3 or 4 attacks anyway. Most combat in 5th edition is not going to have much more than 4 or 5 enemies in most balanced encounters. Again, in 5th edition, whichever side has more people on it, which therefore means more actions, has an advantage. So a lot of times to have a balanced combat, you're going to be having similar numbers. And again, it takes only missing 1 attack or not having someone within 15 feet of an enemy. So literally, all it takes for enemies to be able to make Warpath completely useless is to stand more than 15 feet apart. Which by 18th level, they've been hit by enough of fireballs to have figured out spreading out is a good idea. So, despite getting that feedback, until I actually see people playtesting this and saying, yeah, this is really, really broken, with it being an 18th level of ability, so it should be, this is the penultimate ability of this, it should feel really powerful. And with the amount of damage that you can do with it, not being a massive amount, I'm going to keep it at technically unlimited. It's limited by the number of creatures in there because you can only hit a creature with this attack once per dragon attack. So there's no way for you to double this up onto the damage. You're only ever going to hit a creature with this once. But with that being said, the benefit of the attack is going to be the additional movement, not so much how much damage you're doing. It's the fact that you can spread the damage out and literally move entirely across the battlefield using this. The spectacle of it, I think, is really, really cool. Final thoughts. My final thoughts on this is I wrote the class. I really like it because I wrote the class. So, of course, I'm going to like it. So my final thoughts is not really going to be on whether or not I would recommend this or not. I'm always going to recommend it. I wrote the damn thing. But as far as final thoughts is concerned, the idea behind this class is to be a hyper-mobile class that literally gets to kind of dive through enemies. I think from a visual standpoint, I think that just sounds cool and sounds fun. And that's what I want all of the Dragon Knight classes to be, and all the subclasses, I mean, to be, is they should be fun. You should feel really cool while playing them. And this is definitely a different fighting style than anything that is currently on the market right now. No other class will be able to fight like the Ravager Dragon Knight. So that's kind of where I thought. But for the finality of final thoughts, this is where I actually need you guys in the comments below. Tell me what you think of it. Like I said, you can actually go and download it right now. As soon as I finish recording this video, I'll be uploading it. So it'll actually be live on the DMs Guild before this video goes live at 2. Hopefully. Depends on how well my computer decides to work. If in the description down below, go ahead, get the class, pay what you want for it, pay nothing for it, and download it for free if that's what you want. Getting it once gives you access to all subsequent updates and the things like that. So if I update the class, you don't have to buy it again or anything like that. You just go back to it and you download the new version of it. With this, go pick it up, download it, read it for yourself, and tell me what do you think. And the most specific thing that the thing that I want to hear from you is, does this sound like fun? Balancing and things like that will happen as people review the class, as people play it more, things like that. And I am definitely expecting, once people physically play this class, I'm going to have to make some adjustments. It's just how it works. I don't think I've ever designed anything that the first version was good enough that I never had to adjust it or anything. So I'm not quite as curious about balance at this point, but I am curious about, does it sound fun? Does it sound like something that you would enjoy playing? Can you think up character concepts you're like, wow, this would be such a fun character to play? Let me know in the comments down below. Otherwise, again, that is all for me. I will see you guys in the next time. All right? Bye-bye.